Hi everyone, welcome to Criminal Ash. Jaycee Lee Dugard lived with her mom, her stepfather Carl, and her 18-month-old sister Shana. The 11-year-old Jaycee was kidnapped on 10th June 1991 by sex offender Philip Garrido, which was supported by his wife Nancy Garrido. 11-year-old Jaycee was climbing up the hill to catch her school bus. It was the last day of school before holiday, and Jaycee was busy planning what she wanted to do with her best friend Shani on their vacation. While she is in all sorts of fantasies in her head, a car pulls up beside her. She thinks that the car is standing there to ask her directions, but before she could finally turn her head to look at the car, two hands come out of the car and try to pull her inside. Jaycee doesn't give up. She tries to run to the bush, but she fails because a stun gun hits her body and her whole body experiences some electrical charge. She falls to the ground and pees in her pants, but now is not the time to be embarrassed. Her hand touches something hard and strong, but she wouldn't give up until her hand starts spinning, and she wouldn't give up until she was taken inside the car, rather forced inside the car. After she came back 18 years later, she finally understood what the hard thing was. It was a pine cone, and from then she started collecting pine cone all over the world. It became a hobby to her. She's covered with a blanket and taken to a backyard house. The first thing she tells Philip Garrido inside the house is that her parents cannot afford any money if she was kidnapped, but she did not know that there was something more worse waiting for her. She still is naive about the fact that that will be her home for the next 18 long years. Then Philip Garrido leads her to the washroom and touches her private part in the name of waxing it, and asks her to touch his private part too. And that makes, of course, the little 11-year-old girl more uncomfortable than ever, but she did not still know that something more worse was waiting for her. For the first few days, she was kept inside the backyard with handcuffs with fur. Philip Garrido was the only contact with the outside world for her. He would bring her food and he would come and talk with her. For the first few days, he did not do anything wrong, but later one day he came and raped her. She led 18 long years like an animal. She was used, she was given food, and she was also taken care of, but they never forgot that she was like an animal who should be used and not only fed. After 3 years, she gave birth to her first daughter, Angela, according to Google, or A according to her book, because she loves to maintain the privacy. 2 years later, she gave birth to her second daughter, Scarlett. By this time, Philip Garrido, Nancy Garrido, Jaycee, and her two daughters started acting like a family. Nancy was no doubt a little jealous of Jaycee because her husband used her, and also she gave birth to two children when she couldn't. Nevertheless, Nancy always gifted Jaycee with gifts and whatever she wanted, homemade foods, and she also later started giving gifts and also loved her children. Meanwhile, Philip Garrido was in and out of prison on parole. Meanwhile, parole officers visited their house but somehow never checked the backyard and henceforth never found Jaycee Lee Dugard and her two children. 18 years would pass, and now she finally had the right to go out of the house, sometimes with Nancy, sometimes with Philip, and the last time that she went out alone. Then finally things changed and Philip Garrido made a huge mistake. He was arrested for excessive drug intake. He asks the whole family, that is Nancy Garrido, Jaycee Lee Dugard, and her two children, to come to the parole office and find a lawyer for him. There, a parole officer felt something was going wrong, and the person called Jaycee Lee Dugard and her two children to interrogate. There, for the first time in 18 long years, she writes her name as Jaycee. As soon as the parole officer finds out her real identity, the first thing she says to the officer is that, "I want to see my mother." She remembers the first thing that she told her mother was that she herself has kids. Now she is back to her new extraordinary life that she had left behind. Writing her 18-year-long traumatic experiences in her book was not an easy thing, but she loved sharing her concepts now, and she is a happy author in today's generation.